Okay. Welcome everybody to the Center of Excellence video guide series for training and education on various different aspects of the COE portal, as well as the Dynamics application on what we call the back end. The purpose of these guides is to be an addendum to the written guides that you may have been linked from there to this video series. But really, the point of these is to walk through each of the capacities of those guides, covering a variety of different topics and really kind of diving in to specifics that an otherwise written guide wouldn't be able to do. So the purpose of this first guide is starting out with our account creation process. So from the moment a brand new user or a migrated user creates their account for the first time. Hopefully you'll find these useful. Like I said, this is our first one, so comments and constructive criticism is always appreciated. But with enough rambling, let's go ahead and dive into it. So for the purpose of creating an account for the first time, we first need to access the portal. I'll be using our UAT portal today for demonstration purposes, but for many of you who may be accessing this, you may be using the production environment. I'll provide the links in the description of this YouTube video, and they're always accessible via the resource SharePoint online or in the user guide themselves. So let's hop into it. Let's find ourselves on one of those two links, either the UAT environment or the production link for the portal. So here we are. We have two options of either creating an account or signing into an existing account. So for any new user, both migrated user and a brand new user, will first need to click create an account. This first screen that we see is a pretty important one. The first step is going to be verifying some level of email. For a migrated user, they should be using that email that they received in the email from the backend itself. And then for a new user, an email that they have access to. So let's go ahead and type something in, video series at soil.org. Might be a little hard to see, so I'll zoom in here. Obviously, it needs to be an email that somebody has access to. They can verify that email. The reason for this is that the COE, it takes a lot of concern and serious business around the verification process. We want to make sure that an email that somebody is using, they have access to, and that is legitimately theirs. So we do go through this verification process. So by clicking the blue send verification code, whatever email the user will type in, will receive a confirmation email with that. I'm using a fake email just for the purposes of how many accounts I create on a single day. So give it a second to pop up. And they should receive an email that looks very similar to this. Ignore my pop-up for my email. So they don't get it from Microsoft on behalf of Special Olympics B2C, business to consumer, with whatever email they put in, and then that verification code. All the individual would have to do is either copy and paste this email or simply just type it into the verification code. Whatever is going to be easiest for them. I certainly believe that copy and pasting is the easiest route, but might not be best for everybody. So definitely from a training perspective, this verification code process definitely trips people up for the first time. But once they do it, they'll never have to verify an email again, with the exception of resetting a password. They'll have to go through that if they do forget their password, and we need to do that. So let's copy and paste that into our box here, and then click verify code. In the event that somebody sends a verification code, they walk away, the code expires, and they need to send a new one, they can click this, and then it will resend that email with a new generated code. Big note with that is that if a new code is sent and they still have access to the previous code, so an email that they sent previously, that old code will no longer be eligible to be copy and pasted or typed in. They'll need to use the most recent code that they get. Just a note here as well is Microsoft does a pretty good job of getting filtered out from potential spam emails. There's definitely going to be cases where that email does end up in the spam box. So definitely from a training perspective, make it known that, hey, if you don't see it, check your spam box first before initiating a bunch of new codes. So once we've copied and pasted it, click verify code. And so long as the email is valid and it's not already been used in the system, cases like that would be, if I use this same email for another account and then try to create an account that already exists, it's not going to like it and say, hey, we already have an account on file. Log into that account or reset the password. Speaking of password, go ahead and set one. Big thing here is that it is one case sensitive and that there are certain requirements. It needs a capital letter, a number, and then an exclamation point. We're in the testing environment right now, so that pop-up of those limitations for the password aren't showing up simply because the testing environment doesn't require those. But in production, when you're typing in a password for the first time, it'll tell the user, hey, you got to have a special character, you got to have an uppercase, so on and so forth. Next, we'll move on to our name. Type in a name. Today, we are going to be Bellatrix Lestrange. Strange. It's French. I don't really know. Set that name. This name, after we create our initial account as a user, we won't be able to change it. So if you spell it wrong, the program staff will have to change that. We can change what we're like our nickname if we're called something else later on in these account creation processes, but these two boxes will have to be updated by a staff member if it's spelled incorrectly. And our last question here is, what state do we participate in? Big thing here is obviously, scroll back out so we can see all of our drop downs, is the user should be selecting whatever program that they participate in. If you participate in Pennsylvania, you pick Pennsylvania, so on and so forth. In the event that a person selects the wrong program, you at the state level program aren't going to be able to see what program they selected if it's the incorrect one. That's an easy fix that the COE staff can do for you. We just have to reach out and put in a help desk. Speaking of help desk, I'll put the link into the description of this video as well for that. But in any case like that, it's very quick to move them around. Just not something that you can do from your data privacy perspective. You shouldn't see Pennsylvania data if you're in Special Mix, Washington. All right, we'll select our state. We're going to do Pennsylvania as an example here. Our last step here on this screen is to click Create. So long as our email and password are valid, we'll be allowed to create the account, and they'll move on to the next set of questions. So as this loads, a couple notes. So once they click Create, that account is being created in Dynamics. So at this point, if we go into Dynamics and we go to our contacts, maybe. Why not? Why wouldn't it go slow when I'm doing a video? But here we can see in Dynamics, in our UAT environment, we can see that newly created Bellatrix Lestrange. Big note here is that Bellatrix is listed as a prospect. So this indicates to you as a staff member that Bellatrix has created an account, they've verified an email, but they haven't necessarily given us all that demographic information, and they haven't applied to be a specific role. They haven't identified that they're going to be applying to be an athlete, they're going to be applying to be a volunteer, or they're a parent or guardian. But from your standpoint, from a customer service thing or a support perspective, once that account is created, you can see the progress that user is making. You could be on the phone with them, walking them through the account questions. And as long as you kind of understand what questions are being asked when on the portal, you're able to kind of see what question they're getting tripped up on and how to best support them. Again, at this point, once we click Create on that first screen that we were just looking at, an account is being created in Dynamics. Let's hop back to our portal. And here we'll be met with our first set of questions. So I mentioned earlier, And once they set that first name, last name, we'll see it grayed out as well as our email. The user can't change this. Much of this information can be changed, certainly the first name and last name. And the email can be changed as well through a variety of different method of where we have to deactivate it from the Microsoft side of things. That type of change for an email would come through the COE team. So if you have questions about that and need to change an email for a user, definitely suggest putting it through the help desk, and we can provide additional support and clarification on that. So here we'll fill out this information, middle name, suffix if they have one, and then our important one where we can see with our red asterisk, a phone number. Put in a fake one. Once we've entered this in, click save and continue, and we'll move on to the next page. And I mentioned, every time we click save and continue, that is updating our record in Dynamics. So again, we can see the process of a user and how Bellatrix is moving on through the process by refreshing their contact in Dynamics. This second question that we're looking at is arguably the most important question of the initial account creation process. This is going to identify which route our users go down. So depending on how they answer here, will depend on what first screen they're going to see after they answer all of our demographic questions. If they select, I want to be an athlete, the first thing they're going to see is the athlete zone. If they're registering an athlete as a parent or circle of care member, they're going to see the register zone for parents. If they want to be a volunteer, they're going to see the volunteer zone, etc. This only impacts what they'll see first. We'll see later on in these guides, and certainly on the back end, we can update this information. We can add additional roles, give them additional access. We definitely see that with the coaches. They'll have access to the volunteer zone as well as the coach zone, or an athlete might also be a volunteer, etc. Same with parents. This just really determines what they're going to see first. So for this purpose, we're going to register as an athlete first, because that'll help with future guides here in the future. Click save and continue, and move on to the next page. It's pretty early here in Illinois, so I'm drinking coffee, so I apologize if I'm having awkward pauses here. But UAT is also slow, so you're dealing with me rambling a little bit while I buy some time. Okay, so preferred name. Here I mentioned, if Bellatrix Lestrange is not your preferred name, you go by Bella. You can enter that here. That's pretty self-explanatory. Preferred name, optional field. If they don't put anything, it'll just default to whatever their main name is for their profile. Save and continue. Move on. Just to call out, we've got our progress bar here. Just a nice little visual cue of how long they have until they're completed. Date of birth. Put their date of birth in here, or utilize the calendar feature. I definitely recommend, from a training perspective, just type it. It's going to be a lot easier that way. I was not born in 1895. I'd be a little bit old for that. But yeah, type it or use the calendar icon to select your birthday and year. Click save and continue. So big note to make with the account creation process, especially for our parents or guardians. One thing that trips up a lot of our parents and guardians in Circle of Care is these initial questions. They go through these thinking that they're entering in their athlete's information. So definitely from a communication standpoint and a training standpoint for our users, if we're talking to our parents and guardians, making sure that they're putting their own information in here rather than their athletes. They'll put their athlete information later. We're using an athlete account creation process right now for our demo. But up here above the progress bar, there's an additional message for our parents and guardians reminding them that, hey, make sure you're putting in your own information. For gender, select what identity, save and continue. We'll show this at the end of this guide, but a lot of these questions that we're answering, we can update later. If our t-shirt size changes or we needed to identify a different race and ethnicity as we're seeing here. We can update that later on once we complete the initial profile creation. Same thing if we needed to go back and, oh shoot, I did the wrong identity or something. They can move back in the process and then resave it and continue on. Half this video is going to be loading times. I apologize, but like I mentioned, we're in the testing environment, so it's a little bit slow. Race and ethnicity, select all that apply. Big kind of note of training, they don't have to answer every single one of these. They can just enter the ones that are applicable to them, or simply select, I prefer not to answer, and it'll take away all of the options here. Save and continue. This is a new one, so if you've been through a training before, you have not seen this question, but this question asks for what languages this user speaks. So Bellatrix Lestrange, if we click this little drop down, it'll bring out some other options for us. We can select French, or we can select other, and if we select other, it'll give us an open text box to enter in. She speaks which? Next to continue. And they can put whatever options they want here. T-shirt size, this is an area of configuration for your program. So if you do not offer extra small through 4x, we wouldn't have extra large through 4x. But indicate whatever t-shirt size that you want. This is a big area that may change, and the user on their portal can update this information later. For the region select, this question definitely trips up some folks of, I'm not sure what region I'm in, or what area I'm in. Up here, your program may identify to put some additional what we call rich text, where they can link out to your website to give additional explanation of your region structure. Alternatively, the user could select I don't know, and that'll lock out all these options. That way they don't say I don't know and indicate a bunch of other ones. Or if they do know, they can select Region 2 Wilds. Okay, I'm in Potter County, and then that will be my selection. Big thing here is that the user, if they select Potter, in Dynamics, it will filter up to also be part of Region 2. So you'll get the full kind of region hierarchy just by selecting the most bottom one. If they were just select Region 2, the Wilds, it's not going to give them every single one of these. It'll just give them that blanket highest level of region structure for Region 2. Click Save and Continue to move forward. Where do you live? Entering in your address. Up here in our location box, this is integrated with Bing Maps. So if they were to start typing in their address, this is our office address. If they click this, it'll pre-populate with all of that information. So they don't even have to type it in every single box. They can just type a part of their address. And if they didn't have pre-filled things like I do on mine, you'd be able to see it a little bit clearer, select whatever option that's available, or alternatively just type it into every single one of these boxes. Save and continue to move forward. In case of emergency, who should we contact? So for athlete, volunteer, whoever, putting in an emergency contact is essential here. So we're going to put in Narcissa Malfoy, clearly on a Harry Potter kick today. Shout out to all Harry Potter fans. Put in their name, a phone number, an email. There is no validation to this email, so they can put whatever they want. boy@manor.org, and then select your relationship from the drop down. This is my sibling, for Narcissa. I think they're siblings. We're not here to learn about Harry Potter trivia. We're here to learn about account creation. So once all that information is entered in, click Save and Continue. Again, just to mention, that emergency contact information, could change over time. The user absolutely will be able to update that information if they need to. All right. So at this point, we have completed our initial profile questions. We have answered everything. And if we look back at our account in Dynamics, we refresh, we have gone from prospect to applicant. So we have completed those initial profile questions. And because of that question that we selected when we said, what is your role? And we selected athlete, we are now what we call an applicant in the system. We are applying to be an athlete. There are things that are outstanding in order to be considered active as an athlete. Because if we look at our checklist, we've got an incomplete status for our requirements for becoming an athlete. So after the initial account creation process, everybody should go from prospect to applicant, and then that applicant status will be determined based off of whatever role they selected. So here we're an applicant to be an athlete. If we registered as a volunteer, we'd be an applicant to be a Class B volunteer, so on and so forth. I mentioned a few times already that a lot of this information can be changed. So outside of our initial account creation process, if we needed to update that information, we click here on our little box here where it says our name, click Profile. And this will bring us to a summary view of all the questions that we just answered, allowing us to edit most of this information. I've already mentioned a couple times about date of birth and first name, last name, and email. That information would be needed to change by a staff member at your program. But all of this, if we needed to change it, we are unknown for some reason, we can enter that here, add additional languages, change our address, emergency contact, t-shirt size, etc. We also have 2 additional boxes here for biography, and then at the top here for profile picture. These are just nice to haves, but if we wanted to add a profile picture, okay, apparently my profile picture is not eligible. Probably saved it the wrong file. They can add a profile picture and then add a biography if they choose to. This is definitely nice for families to add for their athletes or an athlete to add for themselves, all of which can be edited and removed from the back end as well. So once we've updated our information as we need to, click Update to save it. And that will save all of our changes to our profile, both on the front end, on the portal, and on the back end for our staff members. Okay, so that's kind of the long and short of our initial account creation process. So at this point, we have gone through the email verification process. We have created an account both on the portal and within Dynamics. Now we're ready to expand upon our applicant status. And our next guide will focus on Athlete Zone and what we can do there and how we can complete our requirements for becoming an athlete. Thank you for watching our first guide. Our next guide, like I mentioned, will focus on the Athlete Zone. Continue on through this playlist on YouTube or move on to the next user guide that is written to find the video there. But again, appreciate all of your time and efforts to learning the COE platform. The help desk link will be in the comments section, or in the description section, I should say, of this video. So please don't hesitate to reach out with questions or concerns about the portal. I'm going to stop talking now and just say thank you one more time. Take care.